Hello, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk podcast. Thank you so much for providing so much love for some of the episodes out there. I know that we cover everything under the sun. That sometimes goes for us, sometimes against us because we don't have a niche. However, this podcast is all about makes people think. And I know if you've been with our journey for the last 2 years where we started, you know that we do not provide solutions, we provide directions because the solutions, once you get by yourself, makes a lot and big difference. And that's where we always try to thrive. So let's talk about today. Today, I have a very inspiring guest. His name is Dayvisson DaSilva. He has an incredible story. Imagine coming to the US with just $200 in your pocket and not knowing about any English. Fast forward, now you're not speaking a fluent English. You are also a tech sales coach. And when I say you, our guest, helping people break into the tech sales industry through his live LinkedIn sessions, aptly named Dayvisson GPT. Yes, that's pretty interesting name, and we will try to get that part as well. However, that's not all. Davison is also helping and coaching a lot of aspiring candidates and people for the sales as well. Davison also runs a nonprofit organization and held some interesting roles before transitioning into the sales. Now, if you need a prime example of hard work, commitment, and perseverance, Davison's journey is it. And speaking of the journey, if you remember our, I think, last podcast of immigration, you might find some parallels. And be sure to check that episode out if you are looking to expedite your green card process, specifically from the countries who have a long backlog. Now, here's the fun twist. Davison's story reminds me of another guest we have had a couple of, I think, 5 or 6 episodes back, if I recall correctly. And I won't spill the beans just yet, but I'll let you guess who that guest might be. So let's dive in and hear more from the man himself. Davison, welcome to the show.
I love the introduction. Sounds like you rehearsed for a long time, but I know it's all natural. Which is the greatest thing. It's so cool. Thanks so much for inviting
You
for me to
deserve,
be
brother.
here today.
Uh, so let's get started about as you know that we become LinkedIn friends, and then obviously we are both work for Microsoft. But that's the power of social network, which we will dive into how we connect with people, resonate in certain form or the other. So let's get started. As I mentioned already in the introduction, you have some interesting story about immigration as well. So, who is Davison da Silva? Let's get started.
Yeah, so I'll tell you my story. Just before we start, I just want to drop a note here.
Yes.
We have met on LinkedIn, and I have seen you, some of your videos and posts, and I started liking it. And then even before reaching out to me, you have been an inspiration on your podcast because I am considering eventually having my own podcast. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and it's really cool stuff, and it's inspiring a lot of people. So and I like what you said at the beginning that you're here to not give solutions, but give direction and ideas, and that's what's hopefully this conversation today will help people to get ideas, and it's all based on my personal experience. So I just wanted to say that before I start saying anything. Thanks so much for inviting again.
Thank you, sir.
Um, yeah, so I mean we can go in so many directions with this question, but I I I I'm Brazilian. I'm from Brazil, originally from Brazil, right?
Mhm.
So technically, high level information. Half of my life I spent my life in Brazil. I grew up in Brazil until it was, 20s, 22 when I moved to US, and then now I'll give my age. I am 44. Does it look like people think I'm much younger, but
Yes.
I
Yeah,
am.
you said.
Right. It's probably the genes. But I half of my life in Brazil, half of my life in US. I moved to United States in 2022. I still remember it was June. I did spoke a little bit of English, not basic stuff and high school English, kind of trying to learn in Brazil. We joke in Brazil, the books on the table is the phrase that you learn every single English school. Say the books on the table, the books on the table. Anyways, so I come with that basic English. I remember it was the final of the 2002 World Cup for Brazil. Of course, I'm like, super excited about the World Cup. First week, I didn't know almost anyone. I knew a couple of friends. I was actually freaking out about trying to watch the World Cup. And when I moved to US, there was that week was the final, and I was trying to find places to watch. Anyways, I always have this memory arriving in a country where I didn't know almost anybody. Even to watch a soccer game for me was a challenge at that time. I was able to watch the World Cup, Brazil won, and everything.
Mhm.
Anyways, it was a great opportunity to move here. I came as a student to learn English. That was the goal, right?
Mhm.
My goal was to come and learn English. I grew up seeing some people in Brazil that had MBAs. At that time, I was like 15, 16. I was like, what is an MBA? Sometimes I would even say NBA, which is the basketball. I would mix up NBA, NBA. But I knew that the people that had MBAs and they were in Brazil, somehow they were successful. Like they had good jobs, they have good careers, and I was like, I'm gonna get this MBA thing someday. And that's when I was in college in Brazil. Actually, I was studying to be a civil engineer. At the age of 17, I graduated from college, and from 17 to 18 to 19, I studied in college for 2 years. Then I stopped for 2 years to serve a mission for my church. And as soon as I got back from my church mission, that's when I came to United States. And I started college all over again on a new language, on a new place, a new country. I reset it. I basically reset it. Um, and that's how kind of everything started. Let me have you ask the question again because I think I don't want to go in a different direction, but
Sure, sure.
just to
So
give a little background how everything started.
definitely. So that's a great, I would say, foundation here. So you mentioned about so your challenges in English. You came to the U.S. to study. Now the question is, was the intention at that time to here for a long time, or you were just study English and go back?
That's a really, really good question because back in my mind, I was just here. I never, ever, ever planned to stay in the United States, which is funny because I know a lot of people come with a career and
Hmm.
they transition and they don't want to work. I just wanted to study and get this MBA and get back to Brazil. My goal was always to go back and give back to my country, and I wanted to get this education. In fact, it's a funny fact here because I'm jumping like a few years. The first time that I met my wife, because she's American, she's from California, she's from the Bay Area.
Hmm.
The first time I met her, I told her, we kind of start dating, and I was like, I'm never gonna marry an American girl in my life because I need to go back to Brazil. The first time I met her, I was like, he's like, are you crazy? Like, why are you talking about marriage? Like, we just met. I was just being 100% honest.
Hmm.
So I have no plans to stay. My plan was to get the best education possible and then and go back and then have a good job in Brazil, which that's what I was thinking about it right from the beginning of time. So I want to get an MBA and go back to Brazil. So the whole immigration, all the process, become an American citizen and being here now and having to network in a whole new country and get jobs and all that, it wasn't on the plane. It was not on the plane at all.
Yeah, I think that reminds me that someone told me never say never because you don't know. And what there are some sayings, right? If I paraphrase, like human make plans and God laugh. In a
Mm.
way that you can make plans, but if there is some other destiny already being written somewhere, then that ought to happen. So
all the
that's
time.
great. So as you mentioned that you never ever marry American uh, girl, and now you're married and have kids.
17
But before,
years. 17 years, 4 kids later, I'm
wow,
here
wow.
talking.
So let's go back again to so when you arrived, when did you realize that okay, US is the place for me? Is it because of your at that time maybe a girlfriend, your wife, or you have some moments if you can help us walk through that? Okay, now I'm here for a long haul.
Yeah, that's no, that's a good point. I think the biggest turning point was definitely the relationship that I had with my wife. Even after we got married, we had plans to go back to Brazil, and she actually speaks Portuguese. She
Oh,
learned
really?
Portuguese because I was like, "Hey, I'm crazy. Like, we're gonna go back. We're gonna have this relationship, you know." Anyway, so she's like, "Okay, I'll learn the language." She
Hmm.
actually learned the language, and she was just talking to my sister yesterday in Portuguese, which is amazing. My wife has also an amazing background. Her family came from Portugal, which is funny. Right, her grandma migrated from Portugal to San Francisco, so she has some Portuguese blood, not Brazilian, but on the Portuguese is on her
Yeah.
heritage. Anyways, oh man, I go over the place and I
No, no. So yeah, so that's perfectly fine. So give you some more direction in that perspective. So yeah, so we discussed
oh
about
the turning point. I remember now.
yes.
What do you ask? I can try to answer. So it was mostly the relationship,
Hmm.
and then having kids, having family, and and then kids go to school and then make friends, and then my wife is after a while she's like, oh, you know what, it might be easier if we just stay. And then sometimes we go back to Brazil on vacations, and then I see the difference. For me, it would be much easier to go back, but then bringing my wife, and would be a huge transformation, right? So at first, it was just me. I was like, I'm all in, let's go back. And then it was just me and her, let's go back. And. But now with kids, it became a little bit more tricky. Now that, Brazil is still a wonderful place. Of course, everywhere there's good and bad places, and to live, and the culture, she loves the culture, she loves the food, and my family and friends. But after all, when we started building our family, we felt like us was the place. I became a us citizen. I love the country, I love the opportunities here. The people is just like it. I went through the entire transformational from being an immigrant and comparing everything, and comparing the language, comparing the all the things that are here, to actually like, okay, all right, there's good and bad everywhere. People are just different. The cultures
Yeah.
are different, and all that. So came to
That
accept being
so
home.
that's I think that's can be resonated with a lot of people because once you start living, you become habitual in a certain lifestyle as well. And initially, as you mentioned, that you were thinking about yourself, and that's how the transformation happens in man's life or in any human being's life. As the responsibilities change, the life scenarios
Mhm.
changes, and that's why there is. I mean, in Microsoft also we say the life changing scenarios when you get married or when you have kids. It's really life changing and it gives you different directions. But coming back to your life, so you immigrated, you have a pretty interesting line of roles and I would say jobs which you have taken. Can you help
Right.
us walk through how and I would say just stop to on the sales side. So before sales or tech sales, you did a couple of jobs as well. So help us walk through your constant struggle and your hard work towards learning English and getting your first job to the point where you are not even doing your job, but now you are in a coaching skill set because coaching requires communication. And from the Davison who came here struggling to speak English to a proficient level, now having as an immigrant, English is also my second language, but it also
Mhm.
always feel connected to the people who are in the same line. Obviously, the stories are different. So yeah, please help us walk through your journey on the jobs.
Yeah. So jobs, I had many, and as you can see, can I kind of jump from place to
Yeah.
place. My wife, when we got married, she's like, "What do you want to do? Like, what kind of company do you want to work for?" And I
Oh,
was
so
like,
one thing before you start,
"Yeah,
you got married before you got your first job?
no, 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 no." So I graduated from Brigham Young University, Idaho, in 2007. I'm
Okay.
old. Yeah, I'm that old. So
Hmm.
I got married 2000. No, I got married 2000. Oh man, 2007. But I graduated 2000, beginning of April 2007. We got married like November, but we were dating for like about a year before that, a year and a half. So yeah, so I multiple jobs. Let's see, I graduated, which I at that time I didn't know, but in 2007, I believe the country was going through some sort of recession.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. As an international student, I'm just like hustling, graduating.
Mhm.
I'm gonna find a job, and then it's so hard to find jobs, so hard to find jobs. And then I end up. I Funny thing is, so my last year in college, that's when all this whole career coach started. Well, my last year in college, I was a peer career advisor. Basically, I got a job on the College of Business and Communications, and I was helping students plan for their career and plan for them to get jobs and reviewing resumes and like doing job search strategies like from scratch. Like it was just natural for me. So students would come sit down on the table, and I would kind of help them. In fact, my wife was we were dating at that time. I helped her to get her first job. I built her first resume, which is funny. I can claim that I helped
While
my
you
wife.
were still looking for your job.
Yeah, my senior year, I'm
Wow.
like, I'm looking for my job. I'm helping people get jobs. And people getting offers, and then I boom graduate. I have no job. I was like, okay, what do I do? I wasn't even thinking about me being an international student at that time. I was just like, I just need to get a job. I was just hustling. So I
So,
graduated.
so one quick
Yeah,
thing,
go ahead.
sorry to interrupt, because this is interesting.
Yeah.
So you were looking for your job, but you're also providing the coaching and guidance to the people. So,
Yes. Senior students.
so
Yeah.
yeah. So how exactly they get your advice while you haven't proven your credibility yet?
Yeah.
I'm
So
just
it was my
surprised.
job. I was just sitting
Uh-huh.
on the table, and they would come to it was a career center, and I was the advisor. That was my was my job. And
Wow. Okay.
yeah, so it was my job. Like I said, it was almost like natural. I think everybody have their superpowers.
Yes.
I It took me a while to realize, but my superpower is, of course, I can communicate, I can talk and do all that. But I have done a few tasks, and it's empathy come as the first skill. Second is like connectedness. So
Right.
I have the ability to really like quickly understand people and connect. That's just a gift. I don't know how to explain. I can
Mhm.
spend 5 minutes with you, and I can ask a couple of questions, and I can quickly understand where you are, where you're coming from, where you want to go, where's the gap, how to fill the gap, and draw a strategy. That's what I have been doing like for so long. But prior to college, I also had a few experiences that helped me develop those skills as well. So I had leadership experiences before. Um, we can talk about that as well. But I'm starting from college, right? United States and
Yes.
college.
Hmm.
So
Okay. Hmm.
graduated, no job, and hustled. I actually moved to a friend's apartment, and I slept on the floor. I put everything on my car after I graduated from college, and I just left. And I went to a city called Salt Lake City in Utah, and then there I stayed with a buddy on his apartment floor. I literally had a mattress, and I was sleeping with him. I had no job, I had no money, and I was just looking for jobs. Uh, After all, I finally got a job. I still remember it was like $10 an hour, working as a customer service slash sales. They needed someone that spoke Portuguese, Spanish, and English. I was like, hey, I'll take anything you have.
Hmm.
It's me. So I interviewed, got the job, and I worked there for 1 year. That was my first job. Also, Here's the thing: they accepted the CPT, which not many people know. But after you graduate from college and you are an international student, you have 1 year to work. That's all.
Hmm.
I was planning to work for 1 year and
You're
go
on the
back to
time clock.
Brazil. Time was ticking, and when I
Time.
got the job, it was like time had ticked for 4 months already. I was living in my friend's apartment for probably about 4 months looking for a job.
So, before you move to another job, first job is always special. Uh,
Yeah.
can you help us walk through how did you feel like getting your first paycheck in the US?
Oh man, so that was the first paycheck after college, right? Because I had worked before every summer. In
Yes.
fact, I can go back and every single summer, I also 3 summers I went to knock doors, and I found a ways as an international student to transfer that into an internship because I was like, hey, I'm gonna practice my language skills. I'm gonna, marketing, blah blah blah, and I found a
Oh,
way
okay.
to, yeah. So I was knocking doors, and I graduated that free. Like I paid for all my entire college by knocking doors and selling door to door. That's how I paid for college.
Wow.
Anyway, let me go back to the first paycheck. First regular paycheck. It was exciting because I was like, okay, I'm finally done, and it's not much, but I can pay for my rent. So I was able to move out of my
Friends.
friend's
That's a.
floor.
Hmm.
Yeah, I pay for rent and food and my cell phone and gas. That was it. Like there wasn't much. If you think about it, $10 an hour.
Oh,
It
so
was,
I mean, yeah, obviously, it seems that you have a lot of things happen in Brazil as well. So, do you think that doing door-to-door sales helped you in crafting your persona in a way that helped you in thriving in the US as well? Because you've been already prepared on not, I mean, knocking the doors has so much already in it, right? The anxiety, the thick
yeah,
skin when people turn you down, and sometimes it's good days, sometimes they're worse. So basically, you are crafting yourself, as we say, right? You heat up, uh, what do you call, the gold or the diamonds, right? You have to put it in that particular temperature to shape it up. So while you are growing, you already been there, having those tough moments, see and saws and ups and downs of your life. Do you think
yeah,
that that helped you to kind of
yeah,
stabilize
hundred
in the US?
percent, 100%. And I can give a background on that. So I'm trying to fast forward really fast. My very
Yeah.
first job, I was 17. I was a computer technician. I was building computers. That was my very, very first job. And
Mm-hmm.
then and then I started college as a civil engineer and got an internship. My first year in college, I would work all day and study at night. And all day I was working as doing my internship for 2 years as a civil engineer, project management, a lot of cool stuff that I learned. And then after that, I went to serve a mission that I skipped really fast at the beginning of the call, but I served a mission for my church for 2 years. So that was the time that I learned how I was working 60 to 80 hours a week. I was volunteer service,
Mm.
and then I was technically sharing the gospel, right? We call it the gospel, and doing service for two
Mm.
years. So that time I was leading groups of 10 people, then 50 people, and when I finished that 2 years mission, I was the assistant of the president. I was training 200 missionaries, 200 volunteers,
Oh, okay.
and that's how I kind of developed my leadership skills and then all the things that I learned that I could use in college. Knock. So when I went to knock doors, I was already used to knock doors. I was already used to rejection. I was already used to building things from scratch and going to places that I had no idea, you know, what to
That's
do. And so there's a story behind it, right? And that's and in fact in sales. But even with my experience, it's still really, really, really hard when you're knocking doors 100 degrees and then people are just closing the door on you, and then you're mentally tired and you still have to sell. It's rough. It was hard. I wasn't the best salesman, but I was able to get enough money that I would go back and then I'll pay for my books, I'll pay for tuition, and pay for my
So
for
what do you sell at that time?
I sold different things. So I worked in Florida. I sold pest control in Florida. I sold security system in Puerto Rico, and that's how I improved my Spanish because I was studying Spanish in college, and then I was like, hey, I'm gonna go sell in Puerto Rico, and it's gonna be an internship because I'm gonna learn in Spanish. It's gonna be develop my leadership skills, sales skills, marketing. So I went to Puerto Rico and I sold in California. So basically, it was pest control
Mm.
and security systems. That's
That's
usually
good.
what they do on door-to-door sales for college students.
Yeah, yeah. I think what you have so quickly kind of before we move on, summarize, and it's important for everyone who's viewing or listening about Davidson's story is each and every hustle or each and every aspects of your life teaches you and help you to become something. And as you mentioned that in the younger, when you are young, you have not much to lose and you have so much to experiment, and depends on each and every situation in life. You can try to experiment as you have done as well, knocking doors, trying to reach to traveling to different states or countries to learn languages, because languages, if you, a multilinguistic personality helps you a lot in your social circles as well. So as you can see that one thing, it's a dynamo effect of having one thing leads to another and have a bigger
Mhm.
impact, or I would say the snowball impact. And that leads to you that you are not pretty much limiting in yourself, and what you're telling right now resonates what you have done of having different jobs, different unrelated jobs, because you are not feared of, oh, this is not related, or what happens if I'm not doing a related job. So coming
Mhm.
to the tech sales, so obviously you move to different jobs. When you stumble upon tech sales and when you realize that, okay, this is the point now, what I have learned maybe in church, learn in other skills to have leadership or coach people, when exactly that happened?
Yeah, so tech sales came later after my MBA. I completed. Now, fast forward to my MBA. I finished my MBA in a Thunderbird, which is now is part of ASU, Arizona State University.
Hmm.
It was international business MBA. Um, Funny fact again, 2014, I managed to graduate during recession time.
Hmm.
Same thing. I was an international student. No, I'm sorry. I was an international career coach because I was helping students from other countries because Thunderbird has people from all over the world, and people have a hard time getting jobs because of the culture, because of the interview style of the United States, because of the lack of documentation, blah blah blah. So I was helping during my second year, my MBA, helping people get jobs, the people landing jobs, and then I literally graduate with a job, an MBA without a job. I I I was flying the country, interviewing for what I wanted to land, HR pathways leadership program. I tried to transition to human resources during my MBA. In fact, I interviewed with Microsoft. They flew me all the way from
Hmm.
Arizona to Seattle. They picked me up in the airport with a limo, put me in a five-star hotel, restaurants, blah blah blah. 2 days interview. I did not get the offer. Did
I
not get
don't
the
know if
job.
you can do that right now.
Yeah, I did not get the job with Microsoft. Um, Anyways, graduated, no jobs, and then I moved to Dallas. That's when I started uh, the financial. I started financial industry for 2 years. Then I transitioned to tech. So in tech, going back to your question, I started with IBM. I did 5 years at IBM, and now 2 years at Microsoft. And in tech, um, all the experiences that I have had in the past, right? It's helping me. Even though I don't have a technical background, I did not. I got a bachelor's degree in organizational communication, which is human resources slash business. I got an MBA international business. I have nothing to do with tech, but because I'm not afraid of learning new things, because not, like you said, I'm not afraid of trying new things and doing things differently. I was like, I'm ready to learn. So I jumped with. I had no idea what the cloud meant. I just, cloud was just in heaven at that up to that point when I
Yeah.
transitioned to. to IBM. Seriously, I had to learn everything from scratch, and I was able to
Get to
quickly
the.
catch up.
I think what you're saying it strikes one thing which I'm also a firm believer, based on what you have mentioned, is a phrase which I learned from somewhere is the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, which basically gives you the mindset of how what kind of outlook you have for your life or doing a certain things, maybe a small things in your life. Those mindset and those thought process can spill over to other sectors of your life as well. So whatever you have learned before helps you to, I think it seems, and let me know if that makes sense, to transition into the sales and in IBM and then in Microsoft. And not only that, now you have a strong story. It's not
Mhm.
like you have an epiphany, you just wake up one day and then say that I want to get into tech sales. You have a very credible story which shows that you have done some those things which a lot of people haven't done. And those going door to door is something which I think I've seen a lot of people who have done, and that really transformed their life as well. So coming back to your, I know there are a lot of things, but definitely we can fast forward and we'll see. So you mentioned about uh, getting into IBM tech sales. What exactly technology sales taught you? Is it different from the conventional sales? So if you would like to kind of provide some insights around that.
Yeah, what I see in technology. First, I want you to go tech sales because um, I knew it was an industry that was growing. I
Mm,
had that in mind. I was like, technology is just on the face of everyone, so I need to be on that industry. That's kind of how I decided. Um, and then and then when I think about technology, the difference between tech sales and any other type of sales is that it's an ongoing. It never stops. You always have to be learning something new, and that's why what the number one motivator for me in any job that I have had is the ability to learn.
mm,
Um, if I'm not learning, of course there is income, there is benefits, there is this and this and that. For me, top learning. Everything else comes after that. And in tech sales, I am every time I'm overwhelmed, I go to a room, I feel like I'm always the dumbest guy in the room, which is perfect for me because I'm always learning something new. uh, so I think that's the biggest difference. I like to use an analogy that um, you're always trying to catch up. It's like almost like you are in this boat and then you jump in the water and then the boat keeps like a yacht, not like a boat, like it's going fast and you're just swimming, and from that time on you're just trying to catch up and you're never gonna catch up to that boat again, but you just keep trying, just keep trying, just keep trying. And I was learning. That's what I love the most. I was out for 3 months. I just got back because I just had my fourth son, paternity leave, and the amount of emails that I have to go through these past 2 weeks, or the training and the names and the prices and the things that have changed that I have to catch up. I'm like, like that. It gets me super excited. It's weird. It's I was learning, and that's the biggest difference. If you're selling something like, let's say, a product, and maybe in 2 3 years they're gonna have a product development, they're gonna change the logo, the way they market, but you're gonna be like 2 3 years selling that same thing, and like here technology, no, like what I started 2 years ago in business applications power platform is not completely different. I would say like have changed at least 20 30%. So it's crazy.
mm.
It's like
It's it is.
exciting. It's good stuff.
So in tech sales, I have to kind of take a bit of a jump from this because, as you mentioned, your fourth child. Does
Yeah.
having kids change you as a person?
Oh man, that's a deep question. We can spend we can spend
I
like two
always
hours
because
no
this is something which is very deep for me as well. So when people talk about
yeah,
kids, I always ask.
I can talk about it. The straight up question, yes, and a lot. Like I feel like every child I can see a transformation or a phase of my life. right? I feel like right now, um, all the things that I have learned, like it's easier for me and my wife when it comes to waking up at the night and all the is everything is kind of predictable. All the stresses and things that we used to worry about on my first child, that like I was middle of the night kind of poking him, hey, you, to make sure he's breathing and all that. Right now I'm just sleeping. I'm like, I'm out. I'm like, if the baby sleeps, I'm sleeping. He's fine. But in general, life changes. Like I feel like more energized. I feel more committed to my dreams. I feel like time is passing. I feel like I'm starting to worry less and less about what other people think about me, or because I'm a, like personality wise, I'm an introvert, kind of a pleaser. Like sometimes I like honestly, like a lot of times we worry too much about of what other people think, and then I'm starting to be more and more and more grateful for the things I have. Like more, I always did, but more grateful, and then finding more ways to serve, because my life theme, I put on every single post at the end of my post is live to serve, serve to live. I don't know where that came from, but I'm claiming as my life theme, because I believe that if you are living life, if you're not serving, first of all, I believe we're here in this mortal existence to serve, and if you're not serving, you're not really living. And the more you serve, the more you live, the more energy you have, the more you want to give back. So having another child is an additional ability to serve, is an additional ability to raise another human being, and be a co-creator with God. And it's an amazing a miracle. It's overwhelming every time. It's just a huge blessing, like
That's
totally.
great. That's a great perspective. Yeah. So it's not only having another offspring, but it's also about creating another human being, inculcating some of your values, and you never know if that human being comes up and provide great service to this planet and to this whole human ecosystem. So that's great. I
Exactly.
mean, I took a side step to ask this question. We can get into depth, but again, going back to the sales thing. So for the people, I mean, so a first question is, now you have 4 kids, you are doing a lot of coaching, you are active on social media, you have a pretty busy schedule of your sales, and you are talking to some random folk like Saurabh Gupta here. How exactly you manage your time if people say
Here's a question that I was getting.
that?
I'm
So
getting this question more and more. I should write a book about it.
so yeah, so where most of the people
Yeah.
uh, kind of struggle about time management. So spill
Yeah.
some beans about how you manage
Yes.
your time.
So I'm going to teach something here right now.
Yeah,
Some people might take it and write a book, and then they're going to claim it as theirs, whatever. I don't care.
yeah,
But I'll share with you for the first time in public. I don't believe in time management, first of all, and I don't believe in balance. There's no such a thing as balancing, because the more time I put on some projects and effort that I do, the less time I'll give for my family, for example, or whatever I'm doing, right? So I do have my full-time job. I work for Microsoft. That's like at least 45, 50 hours a week, right?
hmm,
And then I have my family, and then I have a nonprofit, and then I have, uh, I'm starting to be a content creator and all that. And then, yeah, of course, I wake up at 3 a.m., right? And then I'm writing a book from 4 to 5 that I'm going to be publishing soon, that people don't even
oh,
know about it. So sometimes, like, but sometimes we think like it's about time. Oh, Dave's is just crazy. He's just waking up to, he needs to take care of his health, or he needs to go, whatever.
hmm,
Um, for me, again, first, there's no balance. And second, there's no time management. Time management doesn't exist for me. My philosophy, I like to think about not time management, but energy management. I don't know how to explain,
that's great.
but what I, it came as a revelation, a dream. I was dreaming, and when I learned this, and I can't remember most of the dream, but I remember one thing that stick. And as soon as I woke up, I wrote down on a piece of paper: time equals energy. Time
Mm.
equals energy. And then if you think about it for a second, just indulge with me here for just a moment. Um, when someone is sick, for example, and they cannot do anything, they're just laying in bed. They have no energy. Therefore, they have no time to do anything. Right? When someone dies, and we say, "Oh, their time is over. This person time is over," because there's no energy left in the body. Right? So that people
Mhm.
died. Anyways, I think about the more you focus on the things that matters most and the things you love and then you're passionate about it, time just kind of disappears, because you have energy to do what you love and you have passion and people can see it, people can feel it, and it just there isn't this analogy that a lot of people like to use where you have the big rocks. They call the big rocks, where you have a bucket and once you put the big rocks first, then you're able to put the sand and you put some water. If you put the water and the sand first and you try to put the big rocks, it doesn't fit, right? So it's more like that. Once you put the big rocks first, you're gonna have more energy. You're gonna be passionate about the stuff you do. What takes 8 hours for someone to work, it might take 2 hours for you to get it done, and you're gonna get it done well. And then you have another 6 hours. So I feel like right now I am living that on that moment. What I other people call the flow. I'm living on the flow, and I'm doing the things I love. I'm taking care of my family first. Um, Now, if you go to my wife and say, "Is Davidson crazy? Is he hours out, or is he just working?" If she says yes, then that's a problem. But if you go to my wife now and say, "How is Davidson doing?" He's like, "He's fine. He's playing with the kids. He cleans, he cooks, he does everything he needs to do at home. He helps me out. He wakes up in the middle of the night, helps the baby." If I'm not being good with my wife, then there's a problem, right? I cannot be good with other people. It's fine. But if I have time for my family, that's the biggest rock that I have. And then I start putting the
Mm.
others, like my full-time employer in Microsoft and the customers that I serve, and then the other things
Mm.
just start to flow. It's just my philosophy. It works for me. It doesn't work for everyone, but that's how I explain time management. Is energy
Yeah.
management.
Energy management. I think that's a
Does that
very
make any
good
sense? I
perspective.
don't. Maybe it doesn't.
No, that's a very good perspective. That's not time management and energy management, and you have to. And obviously, you said it's not balanced. It's just like you have to prioritize and what is important. But on a lighter note, if your wife is looking or viewing or listening to this podcast, please put in the comments that what exactly Davidson has mentioned, that he's doing good, he's doing all the work and helping out. If that is
Yeah.
the truth, so please, and if it's not, please write it down
Yes.
and I'll get back to Davison and say that
Hopefully, I
why
get some extra points with my wife. You put him in the bad spot here, man. Come on, just kidding. I'll share the
no,
podcast with her. She's gonna have
yes,
to
yes,
put some.
definitely. So, well, so that's great. So now, what next? I know that quickly jump on to the last section about. So you already mentioned. I mean, initially we discussed about your life story about how exactly come because again, as I mentioned, that it's about the direction. Everything has a context. Not everyone is born out of everything which they are doing, and people has to understand the process behind it. So that's great. You mentioned about your story. You also mentioned about your philosophies here, how you get into some of these sales, and how exactly that shape up because of your prior experience. Now in this stage, what are your subsequent plans? I know that you have a passion to coach people, to help people get into tech sales. You're doing this Davison GPT. I love the name here. So what is your plans here, and how and what kind of people who are listening this podcast maybe benefit
Yeah,
from your plan?
that's good. Can I can't share everything.
No,
It's on my
whatever you
brain.
can share. Yes.
No, yeah, it's fine. I'm just kind of joking, but Dave's GPT. I just decided, first of all, I decided to call Dave's GPT because there's all this buzz about, all those chat bots and things. I'm like, I'm just gonna go live. It's gonna be me. It's
Mhm.
what's here. It's what's in my heart, and whatever comes out comes out.
Hmm.
It's free. You can connect if you want. You can listen if you want. So I'm like, just gonna call myself. That's kind of how the name came up. Projects. I have been involved with nonprofits from the beginning of ages. Like my parents created a nonprofit because my little sister had leukemia, and she's still alive, but we have seen so many people passing, and man, rough stuff. So we had a nonprofit when I was like 13, 14, uh, that my parents created to help the families who would go to the hospital and had no place to stay, to sleep, to eat, and still go through their kids' treatment. So the nonprofit helped those families. Still alive many, many, many years ago.
Hmm.
Have always served in my church, in community. So nonprofits, it has always been part of my life. I'm so blessed that I'm at Microsoft and I'm working with nonprofits.
Mhm.
Is that coincidence? I don't know. I go figure, but I'm working with nonprofits. Also, I recently just opened a nonprofit. It's called Calango. It's a Brazilian name for, like a lizard. And why Calango is just because he changed colors, and he's very adaptable to different weathers and things and different environments. And the nonprofit for students, for early uh, recent grads and students, to help them land their first job out of college, because I didn't have one, and I know how hard it is, and I want to help people to go through that in an easier transition. And I know there's a lot of people who, I don't know, they charge high fees in consulting, and I'm not here to preach anything about what other people decide to do with their businesses, but I feel like I needed to be a nonprofit because I had no money. How I was supposed to be a career coach? How I was supposed to pay for stuff to get jobs, right? So that's nonprofit. It's awesome. We're going slow because everybody's busy. It's still maybe 1 hour a week, but it's moving. With the team that I work with, Marcelo, Peter, and Trang. They're like awesome, and we're doing really good work on that side. We created a full boot camp um, that a lot of students participated. Some have had offers and that kind of stuff. So seeds are being planted on that side. So that's and recently I just decided to give back to the community on LinkedIn. I found my voice. I know I've been a career coach, like I said, since college. It's natural for me. Plus the 7 years in tech sales completely changed my life, right? So I'm like, why not? I'm gonna merge the both,
Mhm.
career coach, tech sales, and I'm gonna help people how to hack into tech sales like I did, and and see how that's gonna go. Like right now, I'm gonna be providing tons of value and helping people to with everything that they need uh, to
So
I cannot guarantee 100%, but I'm gonna provide as much as information as I can so they can learn how to fish.
definitely learn how to fish is important, not to serve fish on the platter, so that it's a lifelong journey. So that's a great point you have provided. So basically, if anyone would like to learn about tech sales, obviously follow Davison and on LinkedIn. And I have read his posts, excellent post, detailed, and
And I
and
don't use ChatGPT for my posts. I only use GPT, so that's a
yeah.
guaranteed right there.
Yes, exactly. But again, those posts are great. Your thought processes are great. So anyone who would like to get into tech sales wants to kind of reach out. As Davison mentioned, his philosophy is helping more people, and that comes natural to you as well. So that being said, Davison, I think I could go on and on for a long time because you have a lot of things to unwrap. But maybe some other time on this. Any last word for the people who are listening to this podcast about where they can reach out to you? Apart, I mean, LinkedIn is one of the forum. Is there any way else, or anything you would like to mention which we have not covered and you would like to mention on this podcast?
No, let's connect. If we're not connected yet, I can promise if you send me a message that I'm gonna reply. Because just today I can see a bunch of messages and I just haven't had time to go get into it. That
Hmm.
does not mean that I'm being mean, right? Have patience with people.
Hmm.
They reaching out on LinkedIn as well. Like people are busy and they have priorities, and sometimes you want a quick reply, but it's not text messaging. Like messages on LinkedIn is not like texting someone.
Yeah.
Uh, they might get back to that, but the one thing that I just would like to say, I don't know, I we see here Mr. Gupta, Mr. Da Silva sharing conversations talking about life and stuff. Everyone, everyone, everyone has a story, right? You
Yes.
have to find a way. You have to find a way to share it. I'm an introvert, and I'm pretty sure Mr. Gupta is an introvert too. Just but he's here,
Yes.
right? Right? Like
I'm not in I'm not introvert,
a mix.
but I've known a lot of people who are, and I empathize. Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say is like, yeah, but we're here. We're speaking up. We're trying to find ways to serve. And if you are unemployed, I know it's a really rough. Like if you're trying to transition, if you feel like trapped in your work or whatever you do, it doesn't even have to be corporate. If you're doing your own business or whatever, you don't see progress, anything that you're doing live, and then you don't feel like happy or satisfied. I have a formula. And the secret is find a way to serve. Like there is always someone else that's struggling more than you are, and sometimes when we are having trouble in our own lives, we it's hard to look outside. It's hard to see beyond our own problems. But I guarantee you, 100%, that if you find ways to serve, your problems will be you see your problems in a different light, and you will be able to overcome them. On it might not be on your own time, but you will, and I guarantee that. And that's kind of my closing message here. And I
Closing
appreciate
remarks.
you in this podcast.
Yes, definitely. So, Davison, thank you so much for coming on this podcast, sharing your story. Every story has something to learn about, and I learned a lot about your story and reinstate some of the facts which are age-old facts out there. And I'm very hopeful that the people who are listening or watching this podcast will definitely helps again to make them think and decide that whatever they are learning, they have stories around it. And please reach out to Davison if you have any questions, or if Davison is not responding, you can reach out to me, and I'll nudge him on all the social media, including Microsoft, and ask him to
Just
respond.
come on Friday morning, 7 a.m. Central
7
Time.
a.m.
I'm live.
Definitely. But again, Davison, thank you so much. I really wish you all the best for your future endeavors. And yeah, we will be in touch.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks.